Welcome to HD Rare Coins, your ultimate source for rare coins, fascinating history, and the thrill of discovery. From legendary pennies to hidden gems, we explore the world of numismatics one amazing coin at a time. The Oklahoma quarter was minted in 2008 as part of the celebrated State Quarters program, a nationwide effort that had begun in 1999 to honor each of the 50 states with a unique reverse design. By the time Oklahoma's turn arrived, the program had already transformed casual change into collectible treasures, igniting a cultural fascination with pocket-sized history. The Denver Mint, responsible for striking millions of Oklahoma quarters marked with the small letter D, was a hive of precision. Yet even within a process so carefully engineered, perfection was not absolute. Somewhere between the preparation of planchets, the setting of dies, and the relentless rhythm of presses striking thousands of coins per minute, anomalies crept in unnoticed. These errors were often rare, often subtle, and sometimes extraordinary enough to alter the destiny of a simple 25-cent piece. The Oklahoma design itself was chosen for its strong connection to state identity. Its reverse displays a scissor-tailed flycatcher in mid-flight, wings spread wide and feathers trailing with dynamic energy. Below the bird, wild Indian blanket flowers bloom, filling the field with their clustered blossoms. The combination evoked the sense of freedom and resilience so strongly tied to Oklahoma's natural heritage. To most Americans in 2008, the quarter was simply another striking addition to the series, a piece of everyday currency. Yet to a sharp-eyed observer, one that bore even the smallest deviation from perfection, it could become a rare artifact of numismatic intrigue. Among collectors, the Oklahoma quarter quickly gained attention, not only for its aesthetic design but also for the whispered rumors of mistakes surfacing from the Denver Mint. Some coins seemed to bear faint doubling, as though the image had been struck twice, creating a blurred echo of feathers or lettering. Others carried weaker strikes, where details of the bird's wings or the flowers lacked sharpness. And then, more rarely, coins appeared misaligned, their images shifted slightly off-center, leaving unusual gaps between rim and design. For casual spenders these differences went unnoticed, but for collectors, they were anomalies worth pursuing. One such collector, whose lifelong passion had been hunting down overlooked treasures in circulation, found himself staring at an Oklahoma quarter late one evening. The coin had come as change from a grocery store, tossed into his pocket without thought. At home, under the warm glow of a desk lamp, he emptied his pockets onto the table. Among the nickels and dimes, the quarter caught his attention, not because of what it was, but because of what it wasn't. The sharpness he had come to expect from modern minting seemed absent. The letters of Oklahoma looked doubled, faint shadows trailing their edges. At first, he brushed it aside as wear. But when the coin tilted under the light, the doubling shimmered more distinctly. His pulse quickened, that familiar sensation of possibility coursing through him. With a magnifying glass, he examined the flycatcher. Feathers seemed to split at their tips, creating a ghostly second set of lines. The blossoms beneath showed subtle duplication, as if they had been printed with a shaking hand. It was not dramatic enough for an untrained eye to notice, but to a collector accustomed to studying thousands of coins, it was unmistakable. He recalled conversations with other enthusiasts who had mentioned strange Oklahoma quarters, but none had confirmed their findings. Could this be one of those elusive errors whispered about yet seldom seen? The more he studied, the more he realized it wasn't simply weak striking but actual die doubling, a phenomenon where the die itself carries double details, passing that flaw onto every coin it strikes. The implications sank in slowly. A double die error, particularly from a popular program like the State Quarters, could transform a 25-cent piece into something worth many times its face value. Yet value was never immediate nor guaranteed. Rarity had to be proven, demand cultivated, and recognition established among experts. Still, he knew he held something special. At first, the coin's value hovered in uncertainty. Some collectors dismissed the error as minor, a curiosity rather than a treasure. Early sales barely climbed beyond a few dollars, with skeptics arguing that unless the doubling was bold and obvious, it could not capture the market's attention. But slowly, as more examples trickled in, patterns emerged. The error was not widespread, not the result of poor striking across millions, but localized, tied to a specific die at the Denver Mint. This meant the population of such coins was limited, and the scarcity factor began to work in the coin's favor. Prices crept upward, first to modest figures like $5 or $10, then higher as collectors competed for graded specimens. Professional grading services confirmed the doubling on authenticated pieces, and those encapsulated in protective holders began commanding more serious bids. The humble Oklahoma quarter, once ignored, started appearing at auctions and online marketplaces with escalating interest. The collector who first discovered his coin felt vindicated, watching the value rise in real time, though he held on to his own piece, believing its story was not finished yet. The design itself amplified the intrigue. Unlike simple doubling on lettering, the Oklahoma quarter's error carried into the wings of the bird and the delicate outlines of flowers. These natural forms, when doubled, created almost a sense of motion, as though the bird beat its wings twice within the frozen image. For some, the flaw even enhanced the design's artistry, making the coin appear alive with movement. What began as a technical mistake evolved into a kind of accidental beauty, adding mystique to its appeal, and then came the unexpected twist. As collectors sought out more examples, reports surfaced of coins with an entirely different anomaly, a striking rotation. On some Oklahoma quarters, the reverse design was rotated slightly off alignment with the obverse. Instead of the bird soaring straight when Washington's portrait was upright, the reverse tilted, as though the bird itself had angled toward a different direction. This misalignment varied in degree, but in some cases, it was dramatic enough to make the coin appear wholly askew. Such errors, while mechanically unrelated to doubling, added a layer of diversity to the Oklahoma quarter's catalog of mistakes. The presence of two distinct errors, doubling and rotation, meant that the Oklahoma quarter's story was more complex than initially thought. Collectors now speculated whether these mistakes originated from the same production run, or whether the Denver Mint's machinery had simply been unusually prone to mishaps during that year. Theories abounded: worn dies, miscalibrated presses, overlooked inspections. No one could provide a definitive explanation, which only deepened the fascination. Uncertainty, after all, often fuels desire. As years passed, the coin's reputation solidified. Articles appeared in numismatic journals discussing its varieties. Auction houses listed certified Oklahoma errors with detailed descriptions, carefully noting the degree of doubling or rotation. Some pieces fetched hundreds of dollars, particularly in high mint state grades. The collector who had once held his quarter under a desk lamp could scarcely believe how far it had come. The coin was no longer just a sliver of metal, it was a narrative, a symbol of discovery, perseverance, and the allure of the imperfect, yet value was not purely financial. For many, the Oklahoma era represented the thrill of finding hidden gems in plain sight. The fact that such coins circulated unnoticed in pockets and cash registers spoke to the possibility that treasures still lurked among ordinary change. Each quarter spent at a store, each handful of coins received as change, carried the chance of holding history in miniature. The collector community embraced this notion, encouraging others to search, to look closer, to believe that even the smallest anomaly could carry great significance. As with all rare coins, supply and demand continued to shape its worth. Some years saw peaks in price as attention surged, followed by lulls when the market quieted. But the baseline value never returned to face value, ensuring that those who had recognized the error early were rewarded. The Oklahoma quarter became a benchmark in conversations about modern mint errors, a reminder that even in the 21st century, with advanced technology and rigorous quality control, mistakes still happened, and those mistakes could become coveted relics. Looking closely at an Oklahoma era coin today reveals not only the technical flaws but also the marks of its journey. Fine details of doubling shimmer under magnification, telling the tale of a die misaligned at the very moment of creation. A rotated reverse tilts defiantly, challenging the perfection of mint alignment. In 1965, the sound of change rattling in pockets carried a subtle transformation few people recognized at the time. The quarter, long a dependable fixture of daily commerce, bore a silent alteration. For decades, Americans had relied on quarters made of 90% silver, their weight and tone familiar to anyone who handled them. But by mid-1965, the world was shifting. The price of silver had risen, and the government, pressed by economic realities, made the unprecedented decision to remove silver from circulating coinage. What emerged was a clad quarter, a copper core sandwiched between nickel, strikingly similar in appearance to the old silver issues but fundamentally different in substance. Millions of these coins poured into circulation, indistinguishable to the casual eye, yet within that sea of new copper-nickel quarters, something peculiar took shape, an error born of transition. It began not with suspicion, but with routine. Collectors, both seasoned and new, examined coins as they always had. Most quarters from that year looked the same, uniform in size, weight, and design. But now and then, a coin felt different, its edges ringing with an unfamiliar tone, its color holding a silvery brilliance too refined for the new clad composition. To some, it seemed like nothing more than the luck of wear, but to the careful eye, the truth began to emerge. Among the 1965 quarters, a handful had been struck not on the new copper-nickel planchets, but on leftover silver blanks from 1964. This wasn't a deliberate act, nor a planned rarity, it was a mistake, a byproduct of the mint's hurried transition from silver to clad coinage. The revelation grew slowly, whispered between collectors who tested the coins and compared them against known weights. And with every confirmation, the excitement deepened. One collector recalled finding his first example late at night, sorting through a jar of quarters kept for laundry. The pieces clattered, dull and uniform, until one gleamed with an unmistakable luster. At first, it was only a suspicion. The date read 1965, yet the edge gleamed white, lacking the telltale copper stripe of the clad pieces. He weighed it carefully, 6.25 grams, the standard for silver. His pulse quickened. Could this be possible? He checked again and again, comparing it against the clad quarters that should have weighed 5.67 grams. Each test confirmed the anomaly. Holding it under the light, he felt a quiet awe. He was holding a 1965 dated coin that should not exist in silver. It was as though a small defiance of history had slipped into his hands, a silent relic overlooked by the mint itself. News of the error spread cautiously at first. Collectors whispered of fines, testing coins with scales and magnifiers, careful not to draw too much attention. As more examples surfaced, the narrative deepened. These weren't fantasies or isolated rumors, they were genuine transitional errors, born in the delicate overlap between two coinage eras. The government's decision to eliminate silver had been abrupt, yet the machinery of minting was vast, its bins filled with blanks from previous years. In the haste to push the clad coinage into circulation, some of those leftover silver planchets were struck with 1965 dies, producing coins that seemed impossible at a glance. And because they weren't intended, they were few, scattered across the nation's pockets without fanfare. Every discovery carried with it a sense of stumbling upon forbidden treasure. At first, the market did not know how to react. A collector might sell one quietly to another, receiving a premium but nothing extraordinary. The coins carried curiosity more than fortune, their rarity not yet fully grasped. But as stories circulated and authenticated examples entered auction catalogs, the truth became undeniable: this was not a trivial anomaly. This was one of the most dramatic transitional errors in modern American coinage. Prices began to climb, with early sales hinting at their potential. Each transaction fueled speculation: how many could possibly exist? Were they confined to a single mint, or had errors occurred across multiple facilities? Every new piece confirmed the mistake, yet also deepened the mystery. The value of the coin evolved with almost theatrical suspense. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, a collector might pay a few $100s, significant yet not earth-shattering. As decades passed, however, the perception shifted. The silver 1965 quarter was no longer seen as just an oddity, it was recognized as a symbol of a turning point in U.S. coinage, the year when silver vanished from pocket change. Auctions began recording higher and higher hammer prices, and whispers of coins selling privately for staggering sums captivated the hobby. By the 1990s, the coin's reputation was sealed. Stories circulated of collectors holding onto them for decades, waiting for the right moment, watching as prices climbed into the thousands, then tens of thousands. The physical characteristics of the era became an obsession for those chasing it. To the untrained eye, a silver 1965 quarter looked nearly identical to its clad counterpart. Yet the details were there for those who knew where to look. The weight difference was undeniable, the edge revealed purity, and the sound, a ringing clarity unique to silver, was unmistakable when dropped lightly onto a table. Each coin held not just metal but a narrative, a story of oversight at the mint during a pivotal year. Some coins bore evidence of circulation, worn by years of unnoticed transactions, while others gleamed in remarkable condition, as if spared by fate to become cherished relics. Every detail mattered, for condition directly shaped value, and a mint-state silver 1965 quarter became the holy grail of transitional errors, yet the story carried a twist few expected. While the silver 1965 quarter became legendary, other transitional errors from the same period began to emerge, 1965 dimes and even cent struck on older planchets, each mistake painting a broader picture of the mint's chaotic shift. What seemed at first to be a singular anomaly revealed itself as part of a larger pattern of oversight. The 1965 quarter, however, retained its throne, its denomination and silver history giving it an aura unmatched by the others. Collectors began to speculate whether more undiscovered examples still lurked in circulation, perhaps lying in forgotten jars or rolls stashed away in basements. The possibility added a layer of suspense to every search, making each 1965 quarter examined a small gamble. Clad or silver, as the decades passed, the rarity took on almost mythical proportions. Auction records broke expectations again and again, each sale a reminder of the coin's elusive nature. A worn example might fetch thousands, while pristine specimens commanded astonishing sums. Collectors and dealers described them with reverence, not simply as coins but as artifacts of an unintentional rebellion against monetary policy. They embodied the clash between tradition and necessity, between silver's historic role and the modern push for practicality. And with every new discovery, the excitement reignited, as if the story itself refused to close. The evolution of its value was as dramatic as any tale of hidden treasure. What began as pocket change in 1965 became a collectible worth hundreds within a few short years. By the turn of the millennium, examples were commanding five figures at major auctions. Some collectors who had stumbled upon them decades earlier found themselves sitting on fortunes they could never have imagined. And even as the market matured, the suspense never vanished, for no one could say with certainty how many truly existed. Estimates varied, but the scarcity was undeniable, and demand never waned. The story of the 1965 quarter, struck in silver against all intent, remains a story of transition, error, and discovery. Each coin carries within it the weight of history, a reminder of a nation shifting its currency, of a mint grappling with change, and of chance itself leaving behind a handful of treasures for collectors to find. They are not merely coins, but symbols of the unexpected, testaments to the idea that even in the most ordinary of objects, extraordinary secrets can hide, waiting for someone curious enough, patient enough, and lucky enough to uncover them.